Hey, my name is Melinda Russell, and I am obsessed with telling the stories of women involved in motorsports, young and older, from all walks of life, currently involved in a wide range of roles or sharing their stories from the past. I'm a wife, mother of four adult children, and a mama of 16. In 2017, I was searching social media for a group dedicated to women in motorsports. When I didn't find what I was looking for, I posted a message to a few racing pages to see if any women would like to connect with me. And now I have thousands of women and men who are part of the Women's Motorsports Network. As crew chief of the only media company dedicated to women in motorsports, I work from wherever my travels take me, publishing this podcast, the Women's Motorsports Network News online magazine, and Let's Talk Racing Live, my social media show. You will hear from women who share their stories from the grid of life, how they manage the messy and memorable moments of family, work, and racing. You will hear their tried and true secrets of success and many other topics like friendships, family, hardships, and heroes that women deal with to balance the seasons of life. So grab your favorite beverage, pull up a seat, make sure you are comfy, and get ready to be inspired and encouraged from the stories on the Women's Motorsports Network podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And my guest today is Dr. Shelley. And she is with Team Kiwi Classic Racing, but we're going to learn all about her and her racing. So would you please start by just sharing a little bit about yourself, your family, so we can get to know you a little better?
Sure. I'm originally from New Zealand, hence the accent, and have lived in America since probably 98. So even though I've still got the accent, but lived all over America, in Seattle originally, and then New York, and then LA for many years, and then just recently moved to Las Vegas. Well, not recently, probably 14 years ago. So I've been living here for the last 14 years, and I have a PhD specializing in human sexuality, and got involved with racing. I live here with my partner, Denis, and he retired about 10 years ago, and he decided he wanted to get into vintage racing and found out about VARA, the Vintage Auto Racing Association in California, and realized that you have to do a high performance driving school to be able to participate in the races and get your driver's license. And at that time I had a Porsche 911, and I decided that I'd do the high performance driving school with my street car just to become a better driver. Mm-hmm. And so did it down at Buttonwillow, and he did it in his little race car, which is he'd bought from Colorado, a little Bug-Eye Sprite. And at the end of the race weekend, he says, well, the track's still hot. Do you want to go out for a few laps in the race car? And I said, sure, that'll be fantastic. So I went out there, I had my helmet on, got strapped in, I didn't want to come back in. I came in and lifted up the visor. I said to him, you've got to find yourself another race car. I'm keeping this one. And I was hooked. So, so that was my beginning, which was in 2019. Okay. So I'm a relatively new driver. I just finished my 6th season, and I've just taken to it like a fish to water. And I was recently at the Women in Motorsports conference in Indianapolis, the Women with Drive Summit. And here I am chatting to all these young 20-year-olds who've been racing for 15 years. And they're like, what about you? And I'm like, well, I race old cars, which are, the vintage racing cars. My car now that I race is a Fiat 124 Spider that my partner built for me over COVID. Okay. So I went from the Bug-Eye Sprite to a Fiat 124 Spider, and I've been driving it. I just finished its 3rd season, and it's and I feel like finally I'm like one with the car and doing really well, keeping up. I used to be at the back of the pack, and then I was the middle of the pack, and then this last race I was at the front of the pack with all the other boys.
Good for you. Good for you. So I was also at Women with Drive.
Ah, yes.
I've been to 3 of the 4. I didn't get to the one a year ago, but I was at the very first one, and they just keep growing and getting better and better and better all the time. It's an amazing event.
600 women there. was
Yes.
amazing. And
Yes.
over 40, I think there was 42 race drivers, female race drivers there too.
Yes.
I really
Yes.
enjoyed going to the brickyard and
Uh-huh.
get, kissing the bricks and doing that. That was really fun.
Absolutely. We get to do a lot of things and hear from a lot of people that you don't normally get to connect to. So that's just amazing for me. And then the people that I met and connected with.
And I
Um,
really wanted to go and have a presence for vintage racing there because there was no other vintage races that were there, and it's a really awesome racing community. And
yes.
there's a lot of young female drivers coming through as well there,
Hmm.
but not very represented. I mean, you know,
Right.
a lot of the emphasis at the Women in Drive Summit was okay, getting sponsorship. How many followers can you get? How many people can you get to, for the sponsorship deals? But I
Yeah.
thought, well, I'll go there and just see what it's all about. And
Right.
yeah, it was
Well, and unfortunately, sponsorship is such a huge deal for 99% of the people. And so, that's one of the reasons they focus on it because um, everybody'd be racing if it was cheap or if they had sponsors, lined
yeah.
up at their door. So,
Well, I think the thing with vintage racing is, of all the racing experiences out there, I think it's probably one of the cheapest ones to do it. Certainly, I
yeah,
mean, even doing the high performance driving school with Vara, it's like $5.95 for the weekend, and you get your provisional license, and the cars are very basic, like they're stick shift, and
right.
they're very easy to maintain and easy to drive. Well, not easy
Hmm.
to drive, but but
Yeah,
it's probably the cheapest form of racing out
yeah,
there.
it probably is. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. So,
that's a great way to get in.
it is. It
Yeah,
is. It is absolutely because you got to get your foot in the door. And I love when you said you got in the car and that's all it took. I hear that all the time.
yeah,
Somebody offered me to drive their car and that's all it took, and I was hooked.
yeah.
And it's the same as far as like motorsports fans. It's kind of the same thing. If we can get them to a racetrack, we've got new fans because
Yes,
once you go to the racetrack, you're 99% of the time you're hooked,
yeah.
there too. So yeah.
And also just
So
attending the high performance driving school makes you a better driver on the street. And
yes.
there's like some young girls that are starting now who start driving on the track before they've even got their street
Oh,
driving
for sure.
license, which is
More.
really cool because you can get it at the age of 14, whereas you've got to be
Yeah.
16 to drive, so on the street.
That's so true. So tell me a little bit about that school. I hadn't heard of that. And so tell me a little bit about why you went there and what do they offer? What's the purpose of going there?
Well, I went to become a better driver on the street because I think now that I've done racing, I think racing in a vintage car or any car is probably far safer to do it on the track. We're all strapped in with your fireproof underwear and helmet and harness and suit and everything than driving on the street.
Sure.
And so I always recommend people, especially women in my life, to do the high performance driving school because
Hmm.
they teach you all sorts of how to get out of a spin, how to drive, how to look at the apex of a turn, all sorts of fun stuff. That it's a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday with lots of classroom time, and then driving on the track.
Okay.
And it's very reasonably priced. They've got one coming up in January 18th and 19th down at Buttonwillow,
Okay.
and I think Vara does a great job. They have a lot of race car drivers who, such as myself, whatever, who become instructors, and then just help people drive better. How to
Yeah.
shift, how to take the corners. What
Right.
to do if you're in a spin, all sorts of things like that. So
That's great because we can never learn too much, can we?
no.
We can always learn something new for
And
sure.
I feel like I'm still learning. I feel like I'm still a beginner in the race car myself. And
Right.
every time I go out, my main purpose is to just do better personally, like to increase, to do a better time and to take the corners at a better angle and to keep up there with the lads because it is predominantly male sport,
Yeah. I was going
racing.
to ask you if there are other women typically when you go to a race?
Sometimes I'm the only girl in my class and in my group. I'm really happy. The last race that I did, there was two younger girls that had come through, and another two female racers that had just started in my group, which was great. And there's some other women in other classes and other groups. Kim Madrid, she races Formula Ford. She's been doing it for years. Karen Salvaggio, she races with the big bore group. And then Kim Jong, she races as well. She's raced a lot of different types of Miatas and Fords. So there's a few out there, but
well,
predominantly many times, yeah. In this last year when I was racing, I was the only girl.
Yeah.
But that I'm always very welcomed, and I love seeing the expression on the boys' faces. You know, I remember one time up in Sonoma, I was racing, and that was when I was in the bug eye when I first started, and I did a really good race. And one of the drivers came up and was knocking on the door. I said, "Who's racing that bug eye?" And I walked out, you know, and with my crazy blonde hair, and he goes, you know, the expression was like, "You're a woman," you know, and I'm like, "Yeah, I love it." So
very cool. Yeah, they don't expect that, but how fun is that for sure?
It is. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I've always been a sort of a promoter of women in whatever. My first degree that I did in New Zealand was a honours degree in law, and I headed up a woman in law group there and a free legal advice, sexual harassment contact person, and was even lecturing at the university on gender neutral language, and this was back in the 80s.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've always been a promoter, and especially we have women's groups here in Las Vegas, and always encouraging women to get involved with everything, but you know, in vintage racing as well. I think it's a very much a challenge. It's a personal challenge. It's like that hand-eye coordination, the mind, the body, the spirit, and it's a great activity. I love it.
Oh yeah, I can hear it in your voice that you love it. So are you hands-on with your car? Like if there's something that goes wrong with it, are you mechanically inclined or?
Not at all. I've learned to, you know, check my tire pressures, the oil, have a look around, make sure there's no leaks. But as far as maintaining the car, I'm very, very blessed that I have my partner involved, and he loves working on cars. He loves building them. He loves, you know, getting them prepped. And we've met some amazing people here in Vegas who have helped with, you know, a lot of the painting of it. But he built it and he maintains it. And then have some very, very good friends in the racing community. Mark Allison down in LA, he specializes in Fiats, and he's helping to rebuild build a new engine for me as well for my season. And yeah, it's great. Auto Recombi's another. Now that I'm into Italian cars, because my partner is very much into Italian cars, they help sponsor us, and with, you know, good deal on parts, discount tires. Yeah, so I have a lot of people that help me out, and I'm one of these girls that just basically arrive and drive.
Yeah, that's okay, because it takes all everybody working together. So that's,
and I have a very strong group of girlfriends who come and help out at the track and get all dressed up in their sexy race outfits, and we have a lot of fun. We always have one part of the vintage racing that I really like is the community, and we always have parties at our pit. We have music and food and drinks, you know, and just make it a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the main important thing, is to show how much fun we can have, and that it is a family thing, and also just a great opportunity to hang out with my girlfriends as well, which is really fun.
Absolutely. And those are the things that you're going to remember. You're not going to remember every race and how you finished and who did what, but it's all about the friendships and the memories you make with those people.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, for sure. So what was your biggest challenge when you started driving that car?
Well, the biggest challenge was because I started off in a Bug-Eye Sprite, which is an Austin Healey, which is English. And I spent the first couple of years with that. I got so used to the feel of the English race car. And then when my partner built me the Fiat 124 Spider, which is Italian, it's like it took me till this last race to really feel one with the car, because it's an Italian one, so it's a lot more, it dances a lot more.
Okay.
And so the biggest challenge is is to become one with the car. And it's, I'm a sexologist, so I look at it as like different lovers. Like I was so used to the English lover, and then to get used to an Italian lover, I'd never had one before, so
Yeah.
it's a while to get used to her. And that last race that I did of the season in November at Willow Springs, it was just that feeling of just oneness. And it was just such an amazing feeling. And so that's been a challenge to get used to her. But
Okay.
it's been a journey. And
Yeah.
it's probably the biggest challenge is just getting used to the car and listening to the sounds and, okay, what's that little clack, and trying to
Mhm.
explain, because I don't have a background in mechanics. And
Right.
I think I just wasn't into cars at all. So that's been a challenge as well.
Okay.
Okay, hey, that didn't sound quite right when I started it up. Should I go out? And then came in, and that wasn't too good.
Yeah.
And
And
so
it's learning. It's all about the seat time and learning what those little clinks and clanks mean. So yeah.
and do you race yourself?
I don't. No, actually, my son, before he passed away, my son got us all into racing, my family. He, from the age of about 4, my first husband worked with some guys that raced dirt back in Illinois. And so we used to go to the dirt track and watch his friends race. And my son was about 4 years old, and he would sit on the front row and he would watch the races.
Mm-hmm.
He never got up from the bleachers unless he was hungry or had to go to the bathroom. And then we always had to go to the pits afterwards so that he could sit in the cars. And then, as he grew older, he started sports in school, and the racing kind of went to the wayside. He never raced as a kid, but when he graduated from high school, he took his graduation money and bought a stock car behind my back.
Ooh.
Yeah. It wasn't really a very good couple of weeks. But at that point, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
And so his first race was coming up, and we all went to the races, and I've never looked back. Yeah. So
It's
he's the one that got us into it. And
great.
my granddaughters both race.
Oh, great.
They're 21 and 19. The 19-year-old is still racing. The 21-year-old has moved on. She works and does other things, but we all go to the races still for sure. So yeah. So have you ever had a chance, or has anyone ever come up to you at one of these races? Most likely a woman, maybe a mom with a younger child, to ask you, is motorsports a good sport for a girl to get involved in?
Yeah, I'm always promoting women getting involved with vintage racing. It's just a challenge. I've had one young girl, one of the things that I love to do is walk the track. Any track that I'm going to be racing on, I love walking the track. And I always encourage the other young girls that are there to come walk with me. And we walk the track, we look at the apex. And some of them I remember one of the girls, she was 14, she was like, I'm so nervous. She says, and she says, I really want to do this because I want to overcome my fear. And I'm like, that's awesome, because her brother was racing, and she idolized her brother. So she decided that she wasn't doing it to become a race car driver. She was just doing it to overcome her own fear. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, that's fantastic. And then we've got another mum with her young daughter as well, who's started racing, which is great. And then it was really cool. The last race, one of the young girls that like 5 years ago who would always come around and hang out at the pit, she finally got a seat in a race car and raced her first race at the last race. And I was like, went up to her afterwards. I was like so excited. I'm like, yay, finally. She did the high performance driving school. But then, being young, she didn't really have a car that she could race, but her uncle let her drive one of his cars, and she was just so excited. So I'm always, and then even, the little kids that come around, always putting them in my race car and encouraging them to take pictures and imagine how it is to race.
Absolutely.
I just love seeing the young people. Even we were up at racing up at with Sovereign up in Seattle.
Okay.
To see now there seems to be a new generation coming through, which is great because the grandparents, who have raced for years,
Yeah.
their kids have been racing. Now their kids' kids are coming through,
Yeah.
which is really cool. And
It's, a lot of sports are, I don't want to say hereditary, but a lot of sports are generational,
mm-hmm.
but none more than racing. I think motorsports is probably the sport that has the most generations as far as grandpa, dad, and daughter or son, because it just seems like that's just how it is. And you grow up at the racetrack. What do you want to do? You want to race. And so, yeah, that's normal for sure. I love that it's still happening for sure. Yeah.
But for me, I mean, I'm still, as I said, feel very new to it.
Yeah.
And I just love getting involved with it. So VAR is very generous. I'm the president of the British Car Club here in Las Vegas as well. I have a Austin Healey Classic one, and they gifted a high performance driving certificate to our club. And it was great to see, there's a young woman coming through in the club who's interested in racing. And I'm like, that's fantastic. So
yes,
I'm
absolutely
always promoting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Did you ever feel like when you went to the track that you didn't fit in, or were you always welcomed?
I think my whole life I've always fitted in. I've always I'm super friendly, and I always go up and meet people, and I've never felt out of place ever, and I've always felt welcomed, and especially in the Vara community, the vintage racing, people are always super friendly, very very happy to see another new driver, and it's a very welcoming community. I loved when we were at the Woman and Drive Summit in Indianapolis. There was that woman who'd just come out with that research on drag racing and how there was very little gender disparity in drag racing. And I've been to drag races many times too. And it's and I think in vintage racing, it's a very welcoming community for everyone. So it's
about how many people show up at a race? Like, are there a lot of people involved in this?
Usually over 100 entrants.
Wow.
In each race, and then families and friends.
Sure.
I think vintage racing could do more to encourage people to watch the races. There's certain tracks, like I think it's Watkins Glen, and there's up in Portland. I know they have the Rose Cup there, and they do get a lot of races. But I would love to see vintage racing promote the local races to the local communities more, because I think the more people that watch it, like you say, the more people that go to the track and see it and walk the pits and meet the people and meet the drivers, the more we can get them involved.
Maybe you'll have to take that on, because I do think that you don't hear about it very much. And I'm really involved in all kinds of racing as far as hearing about it, knowing about it, and I don't hear much about it.
No.
And maybe because there maybe aren't as many women in comparison, but even at that, you're probably the only person I've interviewed that's involved in vintage racing, at least to this point. And I've done about 275 podcast interviews. So it's, we need to get the word out there. And like you said about watching, like, let's find the schedule. Is there one in Michigan? Where would I have to go? All those kind of things.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to do whatever I can to help increase awareness about vintage racing and any type of racing. But I love the whole vintage racing community. It's a lot of fun, and it is relatively cheap to get involved with, which is good.
Yeah, that is good. So let's talk about social media a minute. Maybe that would be a way for us to help get the word out. Do you use social media? What do you use, and how do you use it?
I created a website for our team, teamkiwiclassicracing.com, and on that I write a blog after each race, sort of saying what happened and where we were and the results and any fun stuff that happened or things that went wrong with the car. And then on the website, I also have a link to the YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, Team Kiwi Classic Racing. And we have little GoPros, and it's always fun to. I mean, it's pretty basic, but you just I do a little edit of the highlights of the race and put that on our YouTube channel from my own car and then also my partner's car. And I think that's always fun, especially if there's a bit of a spin-off, or a close call, or showing different driving skills, different tracks. And then we have a Facebook page, Team Kiwi Classic Racing, and Instagram as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're pretty active. Get out
Yeah.
there.
Sounds like it. And that's a lot of work just keeping that
It
up.
is a lot of work. Yeah.
So I'll just tell you, if you tag Women's Motorsports Network, when you make a post, then it's easier for me to follow you and
Okay.
see what you're doing. So I encourage you to do that for sure.
Okay.
So do you race at basically the same track all the time, or do you race at different tracks?
Vara races mostly at Willow Springs in California and Buttonwillow in California. We've also raced out at Arizona at the Podium Club. But I do race with other organizations such as SVRA, and they race at Sonoma,
Okay.
California, which is a fantastic track. And then one on my bucket list is Laguna Seca. They race there. And then the CSRG is another organization. And then SVRA, just as last year, we went up to Portland and raced up there with them.
Okay.
And then Sovereign's another vintage racing group that races up in Seattle at Pacific Raceways, and that was a fantastic little track. And it went from 110 degrees in Vegas up to 66 degrees in Seattle. And then we also went out to Rocky Mountain Vintage Racing out in Colorado this year as well.
Oh, that sounds nice.
It was tough on the car because it's at elevation, and it's 5,000 feet or whatever it was. It was really hard on the cars. It was hard. The jet to be changed, and the weather out there was crazy hot. It was in the middle of beginning of August, and they had tropical, like lightning storms and wind. So I don't think we'll be going back there. But as far as the other tracks on the West Coast, we've also raced out here in Las Vegas. We have the Spring Mountain racing track, which is a private track, and I've raced out there with Vara and also with SVRA.
Okay.
And that's a beautiful track. They've got 2 brand new tracks out there, and that was a lot of fun.
Nice. Very nice.
I would like to do some of the East Coast tracks, but it's a long haul.
It's a long haul from Vegas, that's for sure, especially when you're pulling a hauler with cars in it.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, because I'm sure there's some really good tracks out east. I'm in Michigan, but even more east. I'm sure there are some for sure. Yeah.
Well, I would love
one day.
That's on my bucket list. Once we get the cars all sorted, my partner just built himself a Fiat 124 coupe. Just finished building it and racing it this year. And so once we get both cars pretty stable, then we have a camper, and we have a big trailer that can haul the 2 cars. So I would love to do a whole US tour and check out some of the beautiful tracks. I've heard Road America, Watkins Glen, Lime Rock. There's some amazing tracks out there.
Those are all great tracks. I haven't been to Lime Rock, but I know about it. I've been to Road America several times.
It's the Woman and Drive one. Met the owner from there, and the other organizer from Watkins Glen. I'm like, I'd love to get out there. Yeah,
for sure. Well, what have we not talked about you or your racing that I should have asked you about?
I'm very passionate about health and well-being, and I've noticed out at a lot of the tracks, especially in the vintage racing, and even at the Woman and Drive Summit, there wasn't much focus on the importance of keeping your body healthy and prepared for race ready. And we focus a lot on what fuel we put in our vehicles, but it's also really important to put the right fuel into these bodies. I'm 58 now, and I'm at prime of my life, I feel, and I see a lot of the younger racers and the older racers really struggling with health issues, and looking at, I think it's really important to look at the fuel that you put into your engine.
Yes.
Because the healthier and more, it's a very physical sport. So
it is more so than people realize.
Yes. So the healthier you can be yourself, I think, then it enhances your racing experience as well. Mm-hmm. So I would like to encourage more people to look at health and well-being and maintaining their own engines and their own physical bodies as well. I think that's really important, and especially cutting out the carbs, the bread, and the sugar. sugar feeds cancer, and it's like, so the healthier you can get your own body. And I always encourage people to have a nutrient dense diet with lots of grass fed meat, wild caught fish, organic veggies and fruits, and because it really makes a difference. I mean, it's a lot of fun at the track. Sometimes, I'm half Irish, half Scottish, born in New Zealand, but I like my whiskey. But it's like, I notice the day after, if you have too many drinks at night or whatever, it's like, it's a little hard to, to stay on it and to stay focused.
Right.
So I think I'd like to put more emphasis on that.
Yeah, because especially, like I think about my kids didn't race when they were little, but my kids did dance and all kinds of sports. And so what do? You go to the drive-through, or you go here, or you take, snacks or whatever with you. And we need to be more conscious about, especially, training our kids how to be healthy eaters. Yeah, for sure.
Because without your health, I mean, you can't do anything. And I think that's really important. And people spend a lot of time and energy maintaining their cars. But maybe you need to focus a bit more on how to keep themselves healthy and as well.
Very good reminder. Thank you for that.
And then I love walking the track. As I said, I think it's really important to, when you arrive somewhere, to get out there and see the surface of the track, see there's some, like, luckily Willow Springs finally has resurfaced some of their half the track. I think they're intending to resurface the other half, and it makes a big difference. And when you can see, where the runoffs are, and that's really important.
Where the bumps are, where the holes are, that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, and you get a different perspective when you walk it.
Yes, very much so.
It's like, it doesn't look like it's banked very much, but when you walk it, oh my, it is. Yeah, for sure. So anything else that you would like to share or talk about?
My background also, I've taught a lot of workshops all around the world, personal growth, health and awareness workshops, and also the power of music. So usually at the track we have a stereo, a big boom box, and we get everybody dancing. And I think dancing and having fun and enjoying the experience called life is essential. And I think music is a way that we can also create more interaction with friends and just shake your body around a little bit, move it around, and do some brain gym or kinesiology, cross crawl, things like that. And the power of music to lift us up as well. So I think it's fun to choose music that motivates you, and play some, when you're getting ready for a race, and just having fun afterwards, relaxing. What I love about vintage racing is staying at the track. So that we have a motorhome, we stay at the track, we have a fire pit, and it's sometimes just sitting around the fire pit at night, sharing stories. We've got some incredible people that work in the vintage racing. Like, there's one guy that used to hang out with James Hunt in England.
Wow.
And knows, like, just some of the stories that you hear, and people from all walks of life that come and race. And I do enjoy that about vintage racing, because it's a challenge, but we have, like in Vara, it's called the Vara bubble, meaning there's some people have some absolutely gorgeous cars, and you don't want to, like, smash them up.
Yes.
And it's like this little bubble of safety, basically. I mean, I'm out there racing sometimes with cars that are $1 million. It's like, or hundreds of thousands worth, and then yet my car is probably, it's homemade, so it's it's a lot less, but it's my car, and I love it.
Right.
And
you don't want anything to happen to it. I don't care how much money you have in it.
There's a lot of racing organizations out there where they bump each other and stuff, and that's what I love about Vara and a lot of the other vintage racing groups. Is it's about getting out there, doing your personal best, but also admiring and acknowledging that these cars are really special, and they're old and they're beautiful, and you don't want to damage them. And I think the other thing about vintage racing is, it's like it's hands-on. It's like there's no power steering. You've got to use the stick shift, and it's just very raw. And I love that.
You got to use your muscle.
got to use the muscles. Yeah, but in my shoulders, I know I have a good massage therapist here in town.
That's good. That's
And
good for sure.
chiropractor.
Yeah,
Very important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Shelley, I have really enjoyed meeting you and talking to you. I wish we would have met at Women with Drive, but maybe next year
Yes.
we'll be able to meet in person. This year, because I didn't get to go last year to Phoenix, but then this year, in between the time that I had been to them, there were several ladies there and, younger girls, ladies that I had interviewed, but I had never met.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
so then it was nice to go up to them and say, hey, do you remember doing the podcast with me? And then, it's like, oh, now I really do know you, this is great to be face to face, but it's even better when you can meet in person. And
It
so
is. It's really good.
That's always great.
And it's a wonderful organization. I was very impressed with how they ran everything, and it was beautiful. It was great to see Lynn St. James. She's an icon.
Yeah.
And then all these young drivers. I mean, I'm just like, wow, most of them start at the age of 5, and I think that's incredible.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, with the go-karting and then moving on, seeing the girl in the F1 Academy that was there, and there was another 14-year-old there who races, and I'm like, wow, good on you. And she's out there promoting herself. I'm like, that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a great event, and I tell everybody about it and encourage them to go. So, hopefully I'll see you there next year.
I hope so too. And then if they want to interview any of the other young females coming through, or the ones that have been racing in vintage racing, you're welcome to reach out to VAR, and they can connect you with other female racers as well.
Yeah, I think I'll do that, because it'd be interesting to have a few more represent that, that series.
Yeah, and I would love to encourage more people to come and get involved with vintage racing. It really is a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for being on. If you just hold on after the show, I've got a couple questions for you. But I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. And
behind me, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
The blue one was the Bug Eye Sprite that I started with, and the one on the left is the Fiat 124 Spider that I raced.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. You love them, don't you?
I do. I
know.
do.
I can tell.
I really love it. And so thank you very much for inviting me on. Appreciate
it. No
it.
problem.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. Subscribe to my show and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you or someone you know would like to be featured in the Women's Motorsports Network News online magazine, this podcast, or Let's Talk Racing Live, my social media show, contact me via Messenger on Facebook at Melinda Russell, or send me an email at womensmotorsportsnetwork@gmail.com.